Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive chamber. The walls stretched high above him, covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft blue light. 12 different alien species sat in their seats looking down at him like judges. Their eyes held no warmth, no friendship, only cold judgment. Jake had been in many tough spots during his 20 years with the Earth Defense Fleet. He had faced pirates in the Outer Rim, negotiated with hostile traders, and survived 3 ship battles. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. The Galactic Council was about to throw humanity out of the galactic community. The Zalarian ambassador, Vex Thul, rose from his seat. His green skin looked almost gray under the chamber lights. His forearms moved as he spoke, each gesture sharp and final. "The Council has made its decision," he said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Humanity will no longer be welcome in Council space." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "On what grounds?" he asked. His voice stayed steady, but inside he was burning with anger. "Aggressive expansion," said the Karathi representative. Her insect-like features clicked as she spoke. "Failure to follow established protocols. Dangerous unpredictability," Jake almost laughed. Dangerous unpredictability. That was what they called human innovation. When humans had developed new fusion drives that were twice as efficient as Council technology, the aliens had called it unpredictable. When human doctors found cures for 3 diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries, they called it aggressive. In the observation deck above, Admiral Lisa Parker watched the proceedings. Her hands gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. She had served in the Council's joint forces for 15 years. She had fought alongside these same species, bled with them, saved their lives, and they had saved hers. Now they were throwing humanity away like garbage. "The real reason is fear," she whispered to Commander Ben Davis, who stood beside her. "They're afraid we're getting too good too fast," Ben nodded. His face was grim. 200 years ago, we barely had chemical rockets. Now our ships match theirs. That scares them. Down in the chamber, Vex Thul continued reading from his datapad. "Humanity has consistently shown disregard for established procedures. You modify your ships without approval. You establish colonies without proper authorization. You develop weapons without Council oversight. We develop solutions," Jake said. "When the Tarkani plague hit the outer worlds, who found the cure? Humans. When the Helix pirates were destroying trade routes, who stopped them? Human ships using human tactics. When your own medical facilities couldn't save the Karathi hive queens, who developed the new treatment? Human doctors." The chamber fell silent. Jake could see some of the alien delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. They knew he was right. They had been happy to use human innovations when it suited them. But now that humans were becoming too capable, too independent, they wanted them gone. The Altarian delegate spoke up. His voice was like wind through crystals. "Human methods are chaotic. They cannot be predicted or controlled. This creates instability in our carefully balanced system." "Your carefully balanced system is stagnant," Jake replied. "For 1,000 years you've made the same ships, used the same tactics, followed the same procedures. Meanwhile, the galaxy has real problems that need real solutions." "Enough," Vex Thul said. His forearms slammed down on his desk. "The decision is final. All human personnel must leave Council space within 30 standard days. All human colonies in Council territory must be abandoned. All human ships must surrender their navigation codes for Council space." Admiral Parker felt her heart sink. 30 days to abandon everything they had built. Colonies that housed millions of humans. Trade relationships that had taken decades to establish. Research projects that could benefit the entire galaxy. All of it thrown away because the Council was afraid of human progress. Commander Ben Davis was already thinking about the logistics. "We'll need every transport ship we can get," he said quietly. "The evacuation ships alone won't be enough." "We'll manage," Parker replied. "We always do." Chief Engineer Amy Roberts was in the engineering bay of the UES Liberty when the news came through. She was working on modifications to the ship's power core, improvements that would increase efficiency by 15%, the same kind of improvements that the Council now called dangerous unpredictability. "Pack it up," Ben Davis told her over the comm system. "We're leaving." Amy looked around the bay. She had spent 3 years here, working with alien engineers, sharing knowledge, learning from each other. They had become friends, real friends. Now she had to abandon it all. "What about the fusion drive project?" she asked. "We were so close to a breakthrough." "Take everything," Ben said. "All the data, all the prototypes. If they don't want our help, they won't get our innovations either. The next 30 days passed in a blur of activity. Human ships arrived from across the galaxy to help with the evacuation. Families packed their lives into cargo containers. Businesses that had operated for generations were shut down overnight. Friendships that had lasted decades were severed by political decree. On Earth, President Carlos Ramirez addressed the planet. His speech was broadcast to every human world, every human ship, every human outpost in the galaxy. Today, the Galactic Council has chosen fear over friendship, he said. They have chosen stagnation over progress. They have pushed us away because they cannot accept that different species might have different strengths. He paused, looking directly into the camera. But we will not be broken by this rejection. We will not crawl back, begging for acceptance. Humanity will forge its own path among the stars. We will build our own future. The president's words reached every corner of human space. In the outer colonies, where humans had already been working independently, the news was met with determination rather than despair. They had always known this day might come. Jake Morrison was among the last humans to leave Council space. He stood on the bridge of his ship, looking back at Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world. The city lights twinkled like stars below the massive space stations. "Any regrets?" asked his first officer, Lieutenant Kate Wilson. Jake thought about it for a moment. "No," he said finally. "They've made their choice. Now we'll make ours." What the Council didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this possibility for years. Secret colonies had been established beyond Council space. Research facilities had been built in hidden systems. Supply networks had been created that didn't depend on Council infrastructure. As the last human ships jumped away from Council space, they carried with them not just refugees, but the seeds of something new. Something that would grow beyond the Council's reach and beyond their control. The galaxy would learn that pushing humanity away was the biggest mistake the Council had ever made. 15 years had passed since the Council threw humanity out of galactic society. Dr. Helen Carter stood in her laboratory on Luna Station, staring at the quantum tunnel drive prototype. The device was barely larger than a briefcase, but it represented the greatest breakthrough in human history. "Run the test again," she told Dr. Sam Bennett, her research partner. Sam had been working on quantum mechanics since before the expulsion. Now his theories were about to change everything. The machine hummed to life. Space itself seemed to bend around the device. For a moment, the prototype existed in two places at once. Then it snapped back to normal space with a soft pop. "Incredible," Sam said, checking his instruments. "The energy requirements are 90% less than the Council's jump gate technology. And the speed?" He paused, rechecking his numbers. "Helen, this is faster than anything in the galaxy." Helen smiled. The Council had been so worried about human unpredictability. If they could see this, they would understand what real innovation looked like. While they had spent 15 years using the same old technologies, humans had revolutionized space travel itself. "How long until we can build a full-scale version?" she asked. 6 months, Sam replied. "Maybe less if we get more resources." Those resources were already on their way. President Ramirez had made quantum drive research the top priority of the human government. Every spare credit, every brilliant mind, every advanced facility was focused on this project. Captain Roy Adams received the call while he was on patrol near the edge of human space. His ship, the UES Explorer, was one of the newest vessels in the human fleet. It had been built entirely with human technology, using no Council designs at all. "Captain Adams," came the voice of Admiral Parker, now head of Human Fleet Command. "Report to Sector 7 immediately. You're about to make history." Roy had no idea what she meant until he saw the ship waiting for him. The UES Pioneer looked like nothing he had ever seen. It was sleek and elegant, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. No sharp edges, no bulky components, just pure efficiency. "This is the first ship equipped with the quantum tunnel drive," Admiral Parker explained as Roy toured the vessel. "Your mission is to explore beyond the galactic rim. Find us new worlds, new resources, new possibilities." Roy ran his hand along the drive chamber wall. The metal felt warm, almost alive. "How fast can she go?" "Fast enough to reach the Andromeda Galaxy in 6 months, Parker said. "But we're not going that far yet. There are plenty of unexplored systems right here in our own galaxy." The first test flight was scheduled for the next day. Roy and his crew of volunteers strapped themselves in as Chief Engineer Katie Walsh ran final checks on all systems. "All systems green," Katie reported. "Quantum drive online." Roy took a deep breath. "Engage." The universe disappeared. One moment they were in normal space looking at distant stars. The next moment they were somewhere else entirely. The journey that should have taken 3 weeks with conventional drives had taken 3 seconds. Location confirmed, said navigator Lisa Hayes. We've traveled 47 light years in 3 seconds. The crew sat in stunned silence. They had just proven that humanity possessed technology that made the entire Council fleet obsolete. Every Council ship, every Council trade route, every Council military advantage was now meaningless. Over the following months, human exploration ships spread out across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. They found worlds rich in rare minerals, systems perfect for colonization, and resources that could support billions of people. Captain Adams led the team that discovered New Haven, a world that would become humanity's greatest colony outside Earth. The planet was perfect, Earth-like atmosphere, abundant water, fertile soil, and no dangerous predators. It was like the universe had designed it specifically for human settlement. "This is it," Roy said as he stood on the surface, breathing real air under an open sky. "This is where we build our new home." Governor Maria Lopez arrived 6 months later with the first wave of colonists. She brought with her not just people, but a new way of thinking about colonies. Instead of the rigid, controlled settlements that the Council preferred, New Haven would be built on human principles of adaptation and innovation. "We're not just building a copy of Earth," she told the colonists. "We're building something new, something better." The terraforming equipment arrived next. Human engineers had developed new techniques that could reshape entire continents in just a few years. They didn't just adapt to the environment, they improved it. Rivers were redirected to prevent flooding. Mountains were hollowed out to create massive underground cities. Even the weather was gradually modified to be more predictable and comfortable. Back on Earth, General Nick Thompson was working on humanity's defenses. The expulsion from Council space had taught humans an important lesson. They could not depend on others for protection. "We need to be ready for anything," he told his staff. "The Council might decide we're too dangerous to exist. Other species might see us as a threat. We need to be able to defend ourselves." The new human military was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of massive, expensive battleships that took years to build, humans developed modular designs that could be assembled quickly and modified for any situation. Fighter craft that could reconfigure themselves mid-battle. Cruisers that could split into smaller units or combine into larger ones. Defensive systems that learned from each attack and adapted automatically. "The key is flexibility," General Thompson explained to his officers. "The Council fights the same way they've fought for 1,000 years. Rigid formations, predictable tactics, standard procedures. We'll fight like humans. Unpredictable, adaptive, innovative." Engineer Katie Walsh had become the leading expert on closed-loop manufacturing. Her factories could take raw materials and produce everything a colony needed: food, clothing, vehicles, electronics, even medicine. Nothing went to waste. Everything was recycled and reused. "Independence," she said. "That's what this is really about. We don't need the Council's trade networks or their permission or their approval. We can take care of ourselves." The hidden colony networks grew rapidly. Humans established settlements and systems that the Council had never even explored. They built supply depots in asteroid fields and research stations in empty space. Within 5 years, humanity had more colonies than they had ever possessed in Council space. Ambassador Alex Johnson had a different mission. While most humans were focused on building their own civilization, Alex was reaching out to other species that the Council had rejected or marginalized. He found the Vorthan Collective, a species of energy beings that the Council considered too alien to understand. He contacted the Rimward clans, nomadic traders who had been banned from Council space for refusing to follow trade regulations. He even established communication with the Silicon Mines, artificial intelligences that the Council had declared illegal. "The Council isn't the only power in the galaxy," Alex reported back to Earth. "There are dozens of species out here who have their own reasons to dislike the current system. If something ever happens to the Council, we won't be alone." Dr. Grace Turner was working on the medical advances that would define human expansion. Her team had developed treatments for genetic diseases, life extension procedures, and even techniques for surviving in hostile environments without protective equipment. "The human body is adaptable," she explained to her colleagues, "more adaptable than any species in the galaxy. We just need to unlock that potential." Her research led to humans who could survive an extreme cold, resist radiation, and even breathe different atmospheric mixtures, not through genetic modification, but through advanced medical treatments that enhanced natural human capabilities. On New Haven, the first generation of children born in the new colony were growing up. They were stronger than their parents, more adaptable, better suited to life among the stars. They had never known the council or felt the sting of rejection. To them, humanity's independence was natural and right. These kids will never bow to alien authority, Governor Lopez observed as she watched them play in the colony's Central Park. They're free humans, born free, raised free. Whatever happens next, they'll face it as equals to any species in the galaxy. The quantum tunnel drive technology continued to improve. Second-generation drives could travel even faster and use even less energy. Third-generation drives could carry entire fleets across the galaxy in minutes. Each advance made humanity more mobile, more independent, more powerful. But the greatest achievement was not technological. It was social. Humans had learned to work together in ways they never had before. The expulsion had forced them to cooperate or die. They had chosen cooperation, and it had made them stronger than ever. As the 15th anniversary of the expulsion approached, humanity was no longer the same species that had been kicked out of Council space. They were faster, stronger, smarter, and more united. They had technologies that surpassed anything in the galaxy, and colonies that could survive anything. The Council had thought they were pushing away a minor nuisance. Instead, they had created the greatest power the galaxy had ever known, and they had no idea what was coming. Scout Commander Julie Foster was running routine patrol at the edge of human space when her sensors detected something impossible. The reading showed massive objects moving faster than light without using any known drive technology. They were coming from the void between galaxies, from the dark space where nothing should exist. "Control, this is Scout 7, she transmitted back to base. "I'm getting readings that don't make sense. Request permission to investigate." "Negative, Scout 7, came the reply. "Return to base immediately. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts. Big ones." Julie looked at her display again. The objects were huge, each one larger than a Council dreadnought. And there were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They moved in perfect formation like a swarm of insects. "Control, whatever these things are, they're not from around here," she said. "They're not using any technology we recognize. Get back here now, Foster." "That's an order." Julie engaged her quantum drive and jumped back to the nearest human outpost. What she found there shocked her. Every screen in the command center showed the same thing, an invasion force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood in the center of the room, watching the displays. His face was grim. "How many ships?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Conservative estimate? 50,000. Could be more. They're coming from multiple vectors, all from outside the galaxy." "Any attempts at communication?" "None. They're not responding to any signals. They just keep coming." Tony had seen a lot of battles in his career. He had fought pirates, rebels, and even Council forces during border disputes. But this was different. This was an invasion by something that shouldn't exist. The first contact came 12 hours later. A Council border station near the Galactic Rim sent out a distress signal before going silent. The message was brief and terrifying. "Unknown hostiles attacking station. Ships are changing. They're adapting to our weapons in real time. Shields failing. They're inside the station. They're not just attacking us, they're taking us apart. Studying us. Dear gods, they're learning from us." Then silence. Captain Rachel Stone led the reconnaissance mission to investigate. Her stealth ship, the UES Shadow, was equipped with the latest human sensors and cloaking technology. What she found at the border station made her stomach turn. The station was still there, but it had been changed. Parts of it had been rebuilt with unknown materials. Strange growths covered the hull like metal cancer. And ships, if they could be called ships, were attached to it like parasites feeding on a host. "They're not just destroying," Rachel reported back. "They're absorbing. The station's technology, its design, everything. They're making it part of themselves." The enemy ships were unlike anything in known space. They seemed to be part machine, part organism. They pulsed with organic rhythms but moved with mechanical precision. Weapons grew from their hulls like limbs. Their armor shifted and changed as she watched. "Getting detailed scans," Rachel said. These things are alive, but not like any life we know. They're a fusion of biology and technology, and they're learning. The invasion spread quickly. Within days, 3 more council systems had gone dark. The aliens, humans started calling them the Kreks after the sound their ships made, consumed everything in their path: planets, ships, space stations, even asteroids. Nothing was too small or too large for them to absorb and rebuild. The Council's response was swift but useless. Admiral Vexthul, the same Zalarian who had expelled humanity, led a massive fleet to stop the invasion. It was the largest military force the Council had assembled in centuries. Admiral Rodriguez watched the battle from humanity's hidden observation posts. Human technology allowed them to monitor Council communications and see everything in real time. "This is Admiral Vexthul to all units," came the transmission. "Maintain formation. Focus fire on the largest targets. Standard battle procedures." Tony shook his head. Standard procedures. The Council was fighting this new enemy the same way they had fought every enemy for 1,000 years. Rigid formations, predictable tactics, slow responses. The Kreks tore them apart. The alien ships moved like a school of fish, flowing around the Council formation like water around rocks. When Council ships fired energy weapons, the Kreks absorbed the energy and redirected it back at them. When they switched to kinetic weapons, the Kreks adapted their armor to deflect the shots. Worse, the Kreks learned from every exchange. Each time a Council ship fired, the aliens understood a little more about their technology. Each time they took damage, they improved their defenses. By the end of the battle, Krek ships were using modified versions of Council weapons against their original owners. "They're not just fighting," Tony observed. "They're studying. Every battle makes them stronger." The Council fleet was destroyed within hours. Of the 300 ships that had attacked, only 17 escaped. Admiral Vexthul's flagship was among the survivors, but barely. The proud Zalarian was broadcasting desperate pleas for reinforcements. Director Matt Collins called an emergency meeting of the human leadership. Representatives from Earth, New Haven, and dozens of other human worlds gathered via quantum communication to discuss the crisis. "The question," Matt said, "is whether we get involved. The Kreks haven't attacked human space yet. Maybe they won't. Maybe we can stay out of this." Colonel Dana Phillips represented the military perspective. "The Council threw us out," she said. "They called us dangerous and unpredictable. They treated us like criminals. Why should we help them now?" "Because if the Kreks finish with Council space, they'll come for us next," replied Dr. Grace Turner. "This isn't about helping the Council. It's about survival." "We don't know that," Dana argued. "Maybe the Kreks only attack certain types of technology. Maybe they'll leave us alone." The debate continued for hours. Some humans wanted revenge against the Council. Others believed in doing what was right regardless of past injuries. Still others simply wanted to protect human interests. The decision was made when the Kreks reached Nexus Prime. The Council's capital world was the heart of galactic civilization. It was home to trillions of beings from dozens of species. It was also the most heavily defended world in the galaxy, surrounded by defensive platforms and protected by the Council's most advanced fleet. The Kreks reached it in 3 days. The battle for Nexus Prime was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species, every world, every ship watched as the Council's ultimate symbol of power came under attack. Human observers watched too from their hidden outposts and sensor networks. The Kreks didn't just attack Nexus Prime, they dissected it. Their ships landed on the surface and began converting entire cities into organic machines. The planet's defensive weapons were turned against its own people. The orbital platforms became breeding grounds for new Krek ships. "My gods," whispered Dr. Helen Carter as she watched the feeds. "They're not conquerors. They're processors. They're turning the entire planet into a factory." The Council government sent out one final transmission before their communication networks were absorbed by the Kreks. It was from Councillor Vexthul himself, broadcast on every frequency and every language. "To any who can hear this message," the Zalarian said. His forearms shook with fear and exhaustion. "The Galactic Council is falling. Our fleets are destroyed. Our worlds are consumed. We were wrong. About many things. About how to face new threats. About who our true enemies were." He paused, and his next words shocked every human who heard them. "We call upon humanity. We know we have no right to ask. We know we rejected you, feared you, cast you out. But you are our only hope now. Your methods, your adaptability, your..." Unpredictability. It's what we need to fight this enemy. Please, if you can hear this, if you still care about the galaxy we once shared, help us. The transmission ended. Nexus Prime went dark. The proud capital of galactic civilization had fallen in less than a week. In human space, the debate was over. Whatever their feelings about the Council, the Kreks represented a threat to all life in the galaxy. If they could consume and convert entire worlds, no one was safe. President Martinez addressed the human worlds. "We will not let the galaxy die," she said. "Not because we owe the Council anything, but because we are better than they think we are. Because we are human, and humans protect those who cannot protect themselves." The orders went out to every human fleet, every human world, every human citizen. Humanity was going to war, not for the Council but for the future of all life in the galaxy. The Kreks had made one critical mistake. They had studied Council technology, Council tactics, Council psychology, but they had never encountered humans. They had no idea what they were about to face. The galaxy's greatest test was about to begin, and humanity was finally ready to show what they could really do. Admiral Jake Morrison received the Council's desperate message while standing on the bridge of the UES Defiance. The same Zilarian who had read his people's expulsion order was now begging for their help. The irony was not lost on him. "Admiral," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Kate Wilson, "we're getting thousands of distress signals from across Council space. The Kreks are everywhere." Jake studied the tactical display. Red markers showed Kreks forces spreading through the galaxy like a plague. Council fleets were being destroyed faster than they could respond. Entire worlds were going dark within hours of first contact. "Any word from Earth?" he asked. "President Martinez authorized limited intervention," Kate replied. "We're cleared to engage," Jake nodded. He had mixed feelings about helping the Council, but the Kreks represented something worse than political disagreements. They were a threat to all life in the galaxy. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "All ships prepare for quantum jump. Target coordinates, Altair system. Let's show these invaders what human ingenuity looks like." The human fleet that emerged from quantum space shocked the surviving Council forces. Ships like the UES Resilience and UES Vengeance demonstrated technologies that seemed impossible. They could phase in and out of normal space, making them almost impossible to target. Their weapons struck from directions that defied physics. Captain Brett Williams commanded the lead assault group. His ship, the UES Lightning, was equipped with the latest phase drive technology. It could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, striking enemies from angles they couldn't even perceive. "All units, this is Lightning Lead," Brett broadcast to his squadron. "Remember, these things adapt to patterns. Don't give them any. Mix up your tactics, change your approach, keep them guessing." The first engagement with the Kreks was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While Council ships had fought in neat formations with predictable maneuvers, human vessels swarmed like angry hornets. They appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before the enemy could respond. Commander Lisa Hayes led a strike group that attacked from 6 different directions at once. Her ships used gravitational weapons that warped space itself, making Kreks adaptations useless. When the aliens tried to absorb her energy attacks, she switched to kinetic rounds. When they adapted to those, she used quantum disruptors that unmade matter at the subatomic level. "They're trying to learn our patterns," Lisa reported to Fleet Command, "but we're not giving them any. Every attack is different." The Kreks, for the first time since their invasion began, faced an enemy that confused them. Their greatest strength was adaptation, but humans refused to be predictable. Human tactics changed faster than the aliens could analyze them. Dr. Peter Clark was monitoring the battle from his research ship. His job was to study the enemy and find weaknesses. What he discovered changed everything. "Admiral Morrison," he transmitted urgently, "I've figured out how they work. The Kreks don't just adapt, they're quantum processors. They exist in multiple probability states simultaneously, calculating every possible outcome of a battle before it happens." "How do we fight something that can predict our moves?" Jake asked. "We don't predict our own moves," Peter replied. "Human chaos, our unpredictability, it's not a weakness. It's a weapon. The Kreks can't calculate probability outcomes for truly random events." Jake understood immediately. "All ships, new orders. Abandon all tactical doctrines. Every captain makes their own decisions. No patterns, no coordination, no predictable responses. Fight like humans, the change was immediate and devastating. Human ships began making decisions that defied military logic. Captains would retreat when they should advance, attack when they should defend, and use weapons in ways they were never designed for. To any outside observer, it looked like complete chaos. To the Kreks, it was incomprehensible. Their quantum processors couldn't handle truly random inputs. When humans acted without pattern or logic, the alien prediction systems overloaded. Krek ships began making mistakes, choosing wrong responses, failing to adapt in time. General Frank Miller coordinated with the surviving Council commanders. The experience was strange for both sides. Council officers who had once viewed humans as dangerous loose cannons now watched in awe as human chaos systematically dismantled an enemy they couldn't even scratch. "Your tactics make no sense," Admiral Vexthal told General Miller during a joint briefing. The Zalarians' forearms moved in confusion. "Your ships operate independently. Your captains ignore orders. Your formations are random. How do you achieve coordination?" "We don't," Frank replied. "Coordination implies predictability. We trust our people to make the right decisions in the moment. That's what humans do. We adapt faster than anyone can predict." The liberation of Kepler Station demonstrated human tactics at their finest. The station had been overrun by Krek's forces and was being converted into one of their processing centers. Council doctrine would have called for a massed assault with overwhelming firepower. Instead, Captain Roy Adams led a raid with just 12 human ships. They appeared from quantum space in the middle of the station, right among the Krek's vessels. Some ships immediately engaged in combat. Others began rescue operations. A few started sabotaging the station's converted systems. One ship even began broadcasting human music at maximum volume, just to add to the confusion. The Kreks couldn't process what was happening. Their ships tried to respond to all threats simultaneously, and ended up responding to none effectively. Within an hour, the station was free and the Krek's fleet was destroyed. "How did you know that would work?" Admiral Vexthal asked Captain Adams afterward. "I didn't," Roy replied honestly. "None of us did. We just did what felt right in the moment." The Zalarian stared at him in amazement. "You fought a major battle based on feelings?" "Welcome to human warfare," Roy said with a grin. The tide of the war began to turn. Human forces, working alongside grateful Council survivors, started pushing the Kreks back. System after system was liberated. World after world was freed from alien conversion. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Grace Turner developed a weapon specifically designed to exploit Krek's vulnerabilities. She called it the Chaos Generator, a device that created truly random quantum fluctuations. "It doesn't destroy them directly," she explained to the combined fleet commanders. "It just makes their environment completely unpredictable. Their processing systems can't handle it. They literally don't know how to exist in true chaos." The weapon was deployed at the Battle of Sigma Draconis, where the largest remaining Krek's fleet was attempting to establish a new stronghold. Human ships surrounded the alien force and activated their chaos generators. The effect was immediate. Krek's ships began spinning wildly, their navigation systems unable to function in the random quantum environment. Their weapons fired at empty space. Their formation dissolved into confusion. "Now," Admiral Morrison ordered. The human fleet struck with coordinated chaos. Every ship attacked differently, using random weapons, random tactics, random timing. The Kreks, overwhelmed by the unpredictable environment and unpredictable enemies, simply shut down. Within hours, the entire Krek's fleet was destroyed or disabled. Survivors were captured for study, their biomechanical technology finally available for analysis. Dr. Amy Roberts, now Director of Human Sciences, led the research into captured Krek's technology. What she found was both fascinating and horrifying. "They're not evil," she reported to the Joint Command. "They're just limited. Their entire existence is based on pattern recognition and optimization. They can't conceive of truly random or illogical actions. To them, chaos is literally incomprehensible. So our unpredictability isn't just an advantage," Admiral Morrison said. "It's their fundamental weakness." Exactly. They assumed all intelligence would follow logical patterns. They never encountered a species that thrives on randomness and adaptation. The final assault on the Krek strongholds was almost anticlimactic. Human forces, now equipped with chaos generators and accompanied by grateful Council allies, swept through the remaining enemy positions like a force of nature. The Kreks, faced with an enemy they couldn't understand or predict, simply retreated. Their remaining forces fled toward dark space, abandoning their conquered territories and converted worlds. In just 6 months, the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was defeated by the species the Council had considered too chaotic to tolerate. Admiral Morrison stood once again in the Council chambers, but this time as humanity's representative rather than its defendant. The chamber was different now, damaged by the war, partially rebuilt with human technology, and filled with representatives from species that had survived only because of human intervention. "The Kreks are gone," he announced to the assembled delegates. "Their remaining forces have fled beyond the galactic rim. The immediate threat is over." A cheer went up from the surviving council members. Species that had nearly gone extinct were celebrating their survival. Worlds that had been written off as lost were free again. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had changed. The old order of council supremacy was broken. What came next would depend on whether the galaxy's species could learn from their mistakes. Admiral Vexthol approached Jake after the session. The proud Zalarian looked different now, humbled, grateful, and perhaps a little wiser. "Admiral Morrison," he said, all 4 arms extended in a gesture of respect. "On behalf of 6 months after the last Krek ship fled into dark space, Admiral Jake Morrison stood before what remained of the Galactic Council." But this time everything was different. The chamber had been rebuilt with human technology, making it stronger and more beautiful than before. The seats were filled with representatives from dozens of species, but many chairs remained empty, silent monuments to civilizations that had not survived the war. Jake was no longer a defendant facing judgment. He was humanity's representative in the new Galactic Alliance, and his words would help shape the future of all sapient life. "The old council is dead," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "The Kreks destroyed more than ships and worlds. They destroyed the illusion that rigid thinking and careful control could protect us from the unknown." The surviving delegates listened carefully. They had learned hard lessons during the invasion. Species that had existed for millennia had been wiped out in days. Technologies that had seemed invincible had proven useless against an enemy that thought differently. "We propose a new alliance," Jake continued, "not based on hierarchy or control but on cooperation and mutual respect. An alliance that values different ways of thinking instead of fearing them." Ambassador Susan Lee had spent months negotiating the framework for this new government. Unlike the old council's rigid hierarchy, where the oldest and most conservative species made all decisions, the new alliance would operate on principles of equal representation and shared responsibility. "Every species brings something unique to the table," Susan explained to the assembled delegates. "Humans bring adaptability and innovation. The Altarians bring wisdom and long-term thinking. The Karathi bring precision and attention to detail. The Zalarians bring diplomatic skill and cultural knowledge." She gestured to the mixed groups of beings working together throughout the chamber. "We're stronger when we combine our strengths instead of trying to suppress our differences." The transformation was visible everywhere. Human engineers worked alongside Altarian designers to rebuild damaged worlds. Karathi precision manufacturing combined with human innovation to create technologies that surpassed anything the old council had produced. Zalarian diplomats, humbled by their near extinction, learned human negotiation techniques that emphasized flexibility over rigid protocol. Captain Roy Adams oversaw the reconstruction efforts on Nexus. Prime, the former council capital, had been devastated by the Kreks invasion, its great cities converted into alien processing centers. But instead of simply rebuilding what had been lost, the reconstruction used the disaster as an opportunity to create something better. "We're not just fixing the damage," Roy explained to the work crews. "We're building the foundation for a new kind of civilization." The new Nexus Prime was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human quantum technology provided transportation networks that could move people and goods across the planet in minutes. Altarian environmental systems created perfect climate control without disrupting natural ecosystems. Karathi precision manufacturing built structures that could survive almost any disaster. Most importantly, the city was designed for adaptability. Buildings could be reconfigured as needs changed. Infrastructure could be expanded or modified quickly. The rigid, unchanging architecture of the old council was replaced with structures that could grow and evolve. Dr. Amy Roberts, now Director of Galactic Sciences, established research protocols that encouraged the kind of rapid innovation humans excelled at. Instead of the cautious, committee-driven approach that had dominated council science for centuries, the new system rewarded bold thinking and quick experimentation. Fear of failure was killing progress, she explained to her mixed species research teams. The old council spent years studying problems before trying solutions. We try solutions and learn from what doesn't work. The results were immediate and spectacular. Medical breakthroughs that had eluded council scientists for decades were achieved in months. Energy systems that had remained unchanged for centuries were revolutionized. Even basic technologies like food production and waste management were transformed by combining different species approaches. But the most important changes were not technological. They were social and cultural. Governor Maria Lopez had expanded New Haven into the largest human colony outside Earth. But instead of keeping it exclusively human, she opened it to refugees from the war. Zalarians who had lost their homeworld worked alongside humans in the terraforming projects. Korathi survivors shared their engineering knowledge with human designers. Altarian children played with human children in schools that taught multiple species approaches to learning. This is what the galaxy should have been all along, Maria observed as she watched the mixed groups working and playing together. Not separate species tolerating each other, but different peoples creating something new together. The change was most visible in the younger generation. Children who had grown up during the war, seeing different species fight together against a common enemy, had no patience for the old prejudices and fears. They learned multiple languages, studied different philosophies, and developed friendships across species lines that their parents could barely imagine. On Earth, President Elena Martinez prepared for the formal ceremony that would establish the new galactic government. Leaders from every surviving species would gather to sign the Charter of Mutual Cooperation, replacing the old council's rigid hierarchy with a flexible alliance based on shared goals rather than shared fears. 25 years ago, they pushed us away because they were afraid of what we might become, she said in her address to the human worlds. Today, we're helping to build something that none of us could have achieved alone. The ceremony took place in the rebuilt chamber on Nexus Prime. Representatives from 47 species gathered to sign the charter. Some were survivors of the war, grateful to be alive. Others were new species that had been contacted during the reconstruction efforts. All were united by the understanding that diversity was strength, not weakness. Admiral Vexthul approached the signing table with visible emotion. The Zalarian's forearms trembled as he prepared to add his species' signature to the document. His people had gone from being leaders of galactic civilization to nearly extinct refugees to equal partners in something new. 25 years ago, I stood in this chamber and made the greatest mistake of my life, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. I let fear overcome wisdom. I chose the comfortable lie of control over the difficult truth of cooperation. He looked directly at Jake Morrison, who sat at the human delegation table. I formally apologized to humanity for the injustice we committed. You saved us not because you owed us anything, but because you are better than we thought possible. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. On every world in every language, beings watched as their representatives committed to a new way of living together. The document they signed was brief but revolutionary. It established principles of mutual respect, shared decision-making, and protection for minority viewpoints that would have been unthinkable under the old council. But the most important moment came after the ceremony, during the reception. Human and alien children ran through the halls together, playing games that mixed traditions from a dozen different worlds. Scientists from multiple species huddled in corners, excitedly discussing joint research projects. Military officers who had fought together against the Kreks planned combined training exercises to prepare for future threats. Dr. Grace Turner watched the celebration with quiet satisfaction. As head of the new Alliance's Medical Research Division, she was working on projects that would benefit every species in the galaxy. The same innovative thinking that had defeated the Kreks was now being applied to conquering disease, extending lifespans, and improving quality of life for all sapient beings. You know what the best part is? She said to Dr. Helen Carter, who had become director of the Alliance's Technology Division. What's that? We're not trying to create a perfect system, Grace replied. We're creating an adaptable one. When we make mistakes, and we will, we can fix them quickly instead of being locked into bad decisions for centuries. As the celebration continued into the night, Jake Morrison found himself on a balcony overlooking the new Nexus Prime. The city sparkled with lights of every color, representing the technologies and aesthetics of dozens of different species working together. President Martinez joined him, along with several other human leaders who had guided their species through the darkest and brightest chapters of their history. "Any regrets?" she asked, echoing the question his first officer had asked him 25 years earlier as they left council space. Jake thought about everything that had happened. The pain of rejection, the years of building in isolation, the terror of the Krex invasion, the triumph of victory, and now the hope of building something better. "No," he said finally. "Getting pushed away was the best thing that ever happened to us. It forced us to become who we really are, and who we are is exactly what the galaxy needed." In the distance, construction crews were working around the clock to